Hello, Teitiv says concerning Adam Harishon when he sinned from the tree. In terms of his forgiveness, if he does good, his sin will be atoned for, and if not, lefesach chatas rovetz and so forth. The sin will be crouching for him at the doorway. Perek test the brachos daf samach aleph sof amar aleph amar Rav says Yetzer hara dom lezvuv chulu, that the Yetzer hara is compared to a fly. V'Shmuel amar kimin chitahu, and Shmuel says that it's compared to a wheat stalk. Shneamar lefesach chatas rovetz, like it says that the entranceway, the sin is crouching, but the word chatas is like the word chita, of chatas and chita. Perush Rashi chatas lashon chita darishlei. That's the drasha. Zewal derech amrozal bebrachos pevav daf mem perek vav daf mem amud aleph eitz hadas chita haisa. This is like the opinion that says that the tree of knowledge was wheat, that the child does not know how to say Abba until they taste Tam Dagon, until they taste wheat. So it's a concept of eating the wheat, and that's knowledge, like the Eitz Hadas. V'yuval derech mashikaz b'zohar Parshas Balak Taf Kuf Peiches Amud Beis Amar Rabbi Elazar Vadai Chita Hachi Karinen La. Certainly wheat, we call it this Vetzalom Bechinas Malchus. So the Zohar HaKadosh is talking about we call her, meaning to say Malchus, we call her wheat. She barta de mischata lagabi avua, that she's the daughter that cleanses herself in front of her father, to be a pure daughter, I guess. Balchaminin b'shvatim kulhu d'leis behu chet. But we see by the tribes, all of them, they don't have sin, they don't have the words ches and tes in their names. Uba is chet v'karinan chita. And in her there is sin, and we call her the wheat. Meaning to say, those are the masculine aspects. But the feminine aspect does have the chet. Amar hahu yenuka. So the yenuka there in Balak says Vadai hachihu the chet sharia samichla. So that child, the wise child in the Zohar there says, certainly that is so, that ches and tes is dwelling next to her. So I guess hey of chita is the malchus, and the ches and tes is next to her. But Salomar klipas noga, she's samuch malchus. That is to say, the klipa that can be elevated, which is next to malchus or below malchus, that can be elevated by it. So that's the chet next to the hey. The fisha malchus yoredes libiyah, because malchus goes down below into the worlds of B'riyat Tzirasiyah, der Keshoshana ben Hachochim, like the rose amongst the thorns. I guess in that context, then the Shvatim are the Gvulei Alachson of in Zah. It's more of them connected to the Merkavta Tata rather than as they are in Bria. I'm beautiful Chol Banaich. Look at the Torah Parshas Ve'era. U'Torah or Parshas Berashi B'Tipur Maskel Nina Brachos B'Tam Matpea Katzer Posech Bebaruch Ve'in Chosim Bebaruch. Look over there by the concept of the blessings, about the idea of a blessing that starts with, the short blessing starts with Baruch, but does not end with Baruch. Fishu Keneged Alma de Skasia, because that type of blessing refers to the hidden world. Shisham Ein Mavol L'Yinikas Achitzonim, because in that type of blessing, there's no type of nurturance that can go to the external forces. Therefore, you don't have to seal it to guard it. Therefore, you can leave it open-ended because it actually refers to a higher level than the bracha that's sealed on both sides with a bracha. But the longer version of a blessing that corresponds with the revealed world, which refers to the feminine world, you have to end it with a blessing and seal it. To guard it, and that's the concept of that the sin dwells next to her, next to Malchus. In the revealed world, which is not the case with the Shvatim, which are the 12 diagonals that correspond with concepts within Zir Anpin of Atzilus itself. In the Shvatim, you don't have these letters of Chet, because they come from only the side of holiness of above, but to her, there's dwelling of this. It's a das chita hayachulu, and the tree of knowledge is the wheat, which is this chet hay. Look over there, and there it continues and describes that by purifying the wheat kernel from the chaff and the impurities, and that from what she fears will not come close to you. Meaning to say, it'll keep away the Yinikas HaChitzonim. Vayin mashikasu mizeh b'lekuti Torah parshas Emor b'dibur hamaschil v'henif esa omer perek gimel. Vayin mashikasu mizeh b'Yeshaya nandal yudalet al pasuk b'tzedaka tikon nanichulu. After Shalom, we can say l'china Torah tavlin yetzer hara. So the Torah is a spice, is a way to protect from the Yetzer Hara. Like the pasuk says, if your enemy is hungry, that's the evil inclination. Feed him bread. Because bread is this, because the Torah is bread that's made out of wheat. Kaf Beis Asfan Deoraisa, which are the 22 letters of the Torah. Therefore, you can nullify the evil inclination with it, because the evil inclination is connected to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And if your Yetzer is hungry, so you give it bread, which corresponds with the tree of knowledge, which is nutrients comes from the tree of knowledge, which was wheat. I guess from this bread of wheat, you can actually make the tree of life. I guess that's the concept of feeding it from the bread. Maybe making the bread is changing it from just wheat to bread is like the tree of life, because it's life-giving. Bread is life-giving. I don't know. At any rate, Now Rav says that the Yetzer Hara, even bad inclination, is like a fly. He needs vuv gamken gematria chet. Now zvuv is also the same gematria as chestes. Ubimeore or ozayin siv dalad zvuv nekra klipa. So what's a fly? Kabbalistically, it's the klipa mekabelas the yisod that corresponds with yisod, not malchus. V'hu asher yavi shemen rokeach, and like the pasuk says, zvuve mavis yavi shemen rokeach, that they will ruin fragrant oil. Tov the kedusha of good and holiness, that the word tov is also gematria chestes. Gematria is vuv, adkan l'shono. The tov is gematria good, is the same gematria as vuv, so it's the opposing force to it. And that's in the Me'ore Or, about zvuv. Ve'af shalom, or we can say, Kamo hazvuv, lahut achar, ha maka, that a fly loves a wound, to fly around the wound. Kach isod, the klippa lahut achar niufulu. So too, the yisod of klippa, a corresponding concept, loves to go around promiscuous relations, which is like a wound that corresponds with the yisod, the negative connection. I guess it's also connected with the sin of the tree, according to the concept that the Nachash saw Adam and Chava being intimate in the open and was jealous and so forth. There's then the snake itself corresponds with Yisod. And so here the sin of the tree corresponds with Yisod, which is like the fly which can ruin the good thing. Beis, Perek Hey, Diyuma, Dafnun Beis, Chamisha Makros, Ein Lehem Achrea. It says there are 5 psukim that you can't tell which side of the pasuk is the middle is referring to. Says Mishukadim, Machar, Arur, Vekam. Those are the siman for the 5 psukim. And one of them is Teityv Se'es, the Pesach Chatas Ruvetz. So you can't tell if it's Teityv and Se'es the Pesach Chatas Ruvetz, or if it's Teityv Se'es. Rishalab Meseret Shvus Shilo Daf Kuf Pezayin Amar Beis Herich Bezebe Inyan Kosnus Or. And Inshallah goes at length about this, about the clothing of light. Ezu Adif, which is better, Im Shahaya Nishar Kosnus Or, Im Kasher Me Kosnus Or Yeh Kosnus Or. The question is it best to just keep it as it was originally, garments of light, or is it better to change the garment of leather after the sin back to a garment of light, through birurim and purification? And this is what's hinted to in the Seis, these 2 different approaches, and you can't tell. That's how he's dorish there. Gimel, Perek Gimel de Kedushin, Daf Samach Aleph Amud Beis, Im Teityv Se'es Chulu. So in Kedushin, on this pasuk, if you do good, it'll be uplifted. So if the Sal Kadaita Chamina, Im Teityv Agra, Vim Lo Teityv Lo Agra. You might think this is saying that if you do good, there'll be reward, and if you don't do good, you will not get a reward. V'lo dina, and there won't be punishment. Kamash Malon Vim Lo Teityv, and therefore the pasuk continues. And if you don't do good, the Pesach Chatas Ruvetz, the sin is crouching in the door. Puranus Muchanos Lavochulu. So bad things are prepared to come. This is similar to what it says. See, I am placing in front of you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing and so forth. That the blessing on in Parshas Re'eh on Hagrizim, Malchus Tatzilus, that refers to Malchus. That's the blessing. B'ma'orior Osvez Similam. And hey, Ba'klala Im Lo Sishmo, and then you have the curse if you don't listen. He Lilis Nukva, the Klippa is Lilith, which is the feminine concept of Klippa, as opposed to the Malchus, the feminine of Kedusha. So you have these two opposites, and both of them, Chava and her opposite, are the, so to speak, reward and punishment for the sin of the tree. And similarly, in our context of, if you do good, it'll be uplifted, which is the blessing. It says, if you do good, it'll be uplifted, which is a blessing. Like it says that Aharon lifted up his hands and he blessed the nations. He blessed the nations. The blessing is Vayisa. Se'es is the bracha. And like in Birchas Kohanim also, I mean, it says Yivarechecha Ya'er Nisa. V'im lo teitiv se'es, and if you don't do good, the word says klala. It refers to a curse. The word says can also be a like a sin or a curse. That it says there will be lifted upon them their wanton sin. I wonder if it's connected to Seis and Sapachas also. He doesn't mention it right here. And that's why this word Seis is one of those 5 words that you can't tell which it's talking about, because it's not just the pasuk in the first part of the pasuk and the last part of the pasuk, but it's the word itself that has 2 meanings. That you can describe it as a word that means blessing and also a word that means curse. Which is, if you describe says, if you don't do good, like Rashi says there. And so too you could say, like the Gemara in Kedushin, that if you don't do good, even without the word says, you can still describe that the sin is crouching in the entrance. Because the word chatas also refers to this concept of the feminine concept of klippa, just like the word says. It talks about chatas. V'yesh seis b'kedusha, and you also have seis in holiness, ke'inyan visa Aaron chulu, like it says that Aaron lifted up his hands, like we brought before. V'chein al derech mashikazu b'midbar shera'isa shenasa chahavaya. So too, the pasuk says, in the desert that you saw that Hashem had lifted you up, being lifted up by Hashem. V'inyan romamus, it's a concept of exaltedness. Some look like what it says on the verse, Naso lift up their heads to their skulls. And the skull is also a concept of keser, to be elevated. There in Parshas Vayechi, in the blessings of the Shvatim, it says Yaser Seis veYaser Oz. By Ruvain, I guess. And you have this word says on the opposite side, the Hainu, Echad ben Daled Maros Nagayim, which is one of the 4 types of leprosy, or nega, however you want to translate it. Says Sapachas Chulu, it's says in Sapachas is one of these blemishes. It's interesting. He said before about this vuv that it corresponds with, that it's attracted to the makkah. Bamidbar Rabba Suf Pasha Tazria Seis Zubavel. Bamidbar Rabba Tazria, it says that Seis refers to Bavel, which I guess exile is the concept of the klippa of the sin. And how do you connect that? Because it's like it says by Edom, if you lift yourself up, and Ovadia, it says if you lift yourself up like an eagle, from there I'll bring you down. So exaltedness in klippa is the concept of seis. And again, so that's why you can't tell this word, if this word seis is referring to the positive or the negative. Mishukadim, and then going back to the 5 words that don't have ichreya, if it's mishukadim or mishukadim kaftorei ufrachea, about the menorah, which part of the menorah has the almonds? Because in this word mishukadim, the word almonds, you have 2 kinds of almonds. You have sweet almonds and bitter almonds. Zohar Chilik Beis, Parsha Shmos, Taftes Vav, Ayin, Mashakos, Belkutei Torah, Parshas Korach, Al Pasuk, Vayigmol Shkedim. What it says there about these almonds that grew for Aaron on his staff. And we also see a staff with almonds in the negative, that in the vision of Yirmiyahu, he saw a staff with almonds, because on Iroeh I see it because so I'm going to bring the bad quickly as well. Just like the bracha of Birchas Kohanim comes down quickly without stopping, which is represented by the almonds on Aaron's staff. Similarly, the blessing is also the word seis, like it says that Aaron lifted up his hands, like we said. That's why it says by Aaron, who also lifted up his hands with the bracha with the word seis, it says that his staff grew these almonds. So we see the connection between the word seis and the word mishukadim, that both have this quality. And in Birchas Kohanim it says this is how you should bless them. That's to bring down the blessing to Malchus, which is called Ko, that Ko Savarchu. This is, you should bless the Ko, which is the Malchus. Tavarchu Osius Bikisro, and to bless this from this is the same letters as his crown, Shu Mekor Habrachos Chulu, which is the source of blessings. V'ayin b'medrash Rabbah Rish Parshas Kedoshim B'nyan Bracha M'Tzion Chulu. Look at there. What does it mean? The blessing from Tzion, which would be concept of Yisod, whether or not referring to the first Perush of Rav or Shmuel, whether or not it's from Malchus or Yisod. Daled Suf Per Kama Diyuma Daf Kaf Amad Aleph Amar Elei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mai Amar. The Holy One, blessed be He, says, what does it say? What does he say? Lepesach Hatas Rovetz, that the sin is crouching in the entrance. Pirush Rashi explains that the evil inclination forces you to sin. That's, so to speak, that it's crouching there. That's what it means. It says there in Medrash Kitisa, on the verse, and now you Hashem, your Father, we are the matter, and you have formed us. That this craftsman that forms things, if he makes a pottery vessel and he leaves a pebble in it, So it'll end up being a hole in the pottery where that pebble was, and the whole thing gets ruined. Who caused this vessel to drip and to lose what was in it? It's the one who formed it that left this pebble. So too, Yisrael said in front of the Holy One, must be Ribon Ha'olam, Master of the world. But also, Banu Yetzer Hara Mine Oreinu. You have created within us a bad inclination from when we were young. Like it says that the inclination of man, of the heart of man, is bad. We have this pebble in us. And it's causing us to sin in front of you. And you're not taking away this sin from us. So we're asking from you, get rid of it for us. Therefore it comes out correctly that this is a limud zchus on Yisrael, that the sin is crouching for you at the entranceway, meaning to say that you couldn't get rid of this. You have this inside of you from the beginning. So to speak, we are forced to sin by the fact that we have this inclination. Binyan hachataya. So the concept of the sin here, the word chataya, that the word chataya actually also can refer to the wheat. Get rid of the wheat from us, like the su'or shebi isa, the leavening, like the bread, which the leavening we know refers to the Yetzer Hara. And we can say that this is correspondingly on the other side, in the holiness, in the time to come, that the fully formed loaves of bread will come out of the ground. Not like now that it brings out the wheat, then you have to toil until you make bread from it. And we said that the concept of wheat is close to the concept of sin, because the sin of the tree was wheat. But in the time to come, that will get rid of, he will get rid of the evil inclination. So it's not going to bring out this sin of the tree that's connected to sin, but rather bread itself. Which hence reflects that the wheat was already completely purified, and became good bread. Lechem panag, like the concept of lechem panag, which refers to this idea of pure bread, and so forth. Ayin Zohar, Vayichi, Daf Resh Mem Vav, Al Pasuk Masher Shmin Al Achmo. Look over there about the Asher has land with fat bread, meaning to say bread that satiates you, meaning to say very tasty bread, like in the time to come, that's pure, and all of its impurities have been removed, and it's just a pleasure of la'asilava.